ever episode of She Plays Weekly, the only sports show where it's all women's sports all the time. I'm Preston Bradsher. Let's get into what's happening in women's sports this week. UConn's Monday night win over Baylor was probably the best game of the tournament so far, and a last-minute no-call had everyone up in arms, including big names like Damian Lillard and LeBron James. Conversations like this are so great for the game, and I can't tell you how refreshing it is to argue about a questionable call instead of talking about how inspirational this will be for our daughters. Women's sports aren't just here to inspire children, and there's no better proof than the absolutely vicious play we saw on Monday night. That definitely wasn't for kids. The Boston Pride won the Isabel Cup this week against the Minnesota Whitecaps after that same championship matchup was canceled due to COVID-19 last year. I'm starting to wonder if this whole insane year was all a part of some elaborate plot by the Boston Pride to win the cup. After all, if we've learned anything this year, it's that sometimes it pays to play the long game. CarMax released a perfect commercial Sunday in which a car salesman is unimpressed by Steph Curry and starstruck over Sue Bird, aka my everyday life. There is no better way to make me buy whatever you're selling than straight up pandering about women's sports. I know what you're doing. I'm an educated woman, but I'm also a sucker, and if too many companies figure this out, I'm gonna need another stimulus check. Naomi Osaka is on a 23-game winning streak right now, which makes it more than a year since she was last defeated. I think her personality must have something to do with all these wins. It must be disarming to go up against someone so completely adorable who could also 100% rip your head off. The Olympic torch began its journey on Thursday, which, after all the uncertainty around whether the games would even happen, feels a little bit like waiting to see if a man will move out of the way for you on the sidewalk. Like, it could end badly, but I'm committed at this point, so we're just gonna have to see what happens. And finally, Midge Purce and Megan Rapinoe visited the White House this week for Equal Pay Day after Megan Rapinoe chased Trump out of the country. Midge Purce said in her statement that you would never expect a flower to bloom without water, but women in sport have been denied water, sunlight, and soil and are somehow expected to blossom. The men's national soccer team, meanwhile, failed to qualify for the Olympics yet again, despite their enormous salaries, which is sort of like dumping water on a dead shrub. We've got a great show for you tonight. Amanda Levier of the Minnesota Whitecaps is here. Plus, we'll dig into some of the history-making moments that went down this week. But before we get to all of that, this year's NCAA women's basketball tournament has given us some of the best March Madness basketball we've seen in years, with incredible parity, superstar freshmen, and rising visibility, bringing viewership up by 103% from 2019. But these success stories were overshadowed when the NCAA's blatantly unequal treatment of the men's and women's tournaments came to light. For more on that, let's take a deep dive. The women's tournament was thrown into the spotlight right away when pictures surfaced on social media showing the absurdly different weight rooms for each tournament. The men's looked like something out of a fancy CrossFit gym, while the women's looked like something you'd find in your grandma's house next to a jazzercise tape. Of course, people were pissed, and the story went viral, with everyone from pro basketball players to actual United States senators speaking out against the disparity. That wasn't the end of it, though. Once the pictures of the weight rooms came out, people started digging, and they found that the slights to the women's tournament went a whole lot deeper than yoga mats. First, the swag bags. The men have a bunch of fancy branding, and the women have everything you dump out of your little cheap string backpack after college orientation. Next is food. We have a buffet for the men with lobster mac and cheese, by the way, and something resembling a kid cuisine microwave dinner for the women. All that's missing is that little chocolate pudding with the sprinkles on it. The list goes on. Men's players are receiving the gold standard PCR COVID test, while the women get the cheaper and notably less reliable antigen tests. At the D2 level, the men's Elite 8 games are being played in an arena with a 10,000 seat capacity, while the women are in a carpeted convention center with a gym floor slapped on top. A space whose other uses include sorority meetups and ballroom dancing competitions. This one's my favorite. Both the men and the women received an NCAA branded puzzle in their swag bags to stave off boredom in between games. The men's puzzle had 500 pieces and the women's had 150. Which is fair, I guess, since the women don't have the weight room that the men do to bulk up, and their delicate lady fingers would get tired from lifting so many extremely heavy puzzle pieces. When the initial weight room pictures surfaced, the NCAA tried to blame it on a lack of space. Oregon forward Sedota Prince cleared that up immediately in a TikTok that showed a huge empty space right across from the sorry fitness equipment setup. Once NCAA officials realized that the people in the bubble do in fact have phones and that they couldn't hide, They changed their story completely and scrambled to apologize. NCAA President Mark Emmert made an initial apology to members of the press, but then tried to make excuses about how this was a communication mix-up due to the challenges of virtual work, as if everyone in this country hasn't been working virtually for a year now. NCAA Vice President for Basketball Dan Gavitt also apologized and promised to fix the weight room issue as soon as possible. And look, it's great that you got it fixed relatively quickly, but you can't expect this to go away that easily. You can't look at me and say that you didn't realize that a large group of elite athletes would need things like decent food and weights. That would be like inviting your friends to a cookout and telling them that they have to bring their own buns. The real question here is, how was an organization designed to protect and promote college athletics allowed to so blatantly disregard half their athletes? I think the answer is that women in sports have been taught to believe that they should be happy with the crumbs from the men's table. Maybe that worked 20 years ago, but it can't fly anymore. When you tell women that they're a charity case and that they should just be grateful, while men are heroes for doing the absolute bare minimum, you create a sports environment where things like this happen without a second thought. Why should NCAA leadership bother giving women equitable treatment when they've gotten away with this for so long? The NCAA claimed last weekend that the discrepancies are fair because women's basketball loses money every year. This is a tired argument that makes less and less sense the more you dig into the numbers. The women's tournament has a TV deal worth $500 million. Every game in the tournament is being nationally broadcast, and tons of massive brands are advertising during the tournament. And all of this is without the huge boost of the March Madness branding, which the NCAA has chosen to withhold from the women's tournament, even though the trademark clearly allows it. It's becoming obvious that the NCAA is fixing their revenue numbers to fit the story that they want to tell, which in this case is one where female athletes are dead weight who should feel lucky to be included. The plan seems to be to just exhaust women into giving up. They give us crumbs and they pretend that that's enough, make us fight for more, and when we get too exhausted to fight anymore, they say, "Oh, we didn't know that you wanted that. You should have asked." Now that the NCAA has been exposed, there can be no going back. Their leadership isn't even trying to defend these decisions because they're just so obviously wrong. The only way that they can continue to discriminate against women is if people let them, so don't let them. We have to hold the NCAA accountable to the Title IX guidance it claims to champion, and let them know that the time for giving women the crumbs is over. That was your deep dive. We'll be back in just a second with Amanda Levier. Our guest tonight is a three-time national champion, current record holder for most all-time wins in the National Women's Hockey League, and coach to about half the hockey players in Minnesota. She also just competed in her third Isabel Cup. Lev, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me today.
Good. So you just finished the Isabel Cup, your third one, like I said. How was that experience?
It definitely a different one from previous years, just because everything that's going on with the pandemic. And after our experience in Lake Placid, we didn't know if we were going to have the opportunity to play again this season. So the fact that we even got out there and got to be on NBC Sports is a success in itself, even though there's kind of a little bit of a gray cloud over our team right now because we didn't win the Isabel Cup. But there's so many things that we're thankful for. The teammates that I had personally this year were phenomenal. And even though it was a different season, it was still one of my favorite seasons just because of how awesome everybody was on our team.
Yeah. And you mentioned about being on NBC. That was a massive deal. First time pro women's hockey championship has ever been on national TV, and it almost didn't happen. We thought it wouldn't happen after the cancellation for COVID. So what kind of feedback have you got about that? Have you heard from people who saw it?
It was really cool. I was in the hotel room getting ready to go to play our semifinal game, and I turned on the TV and I saw the NWHL logo, and I saw players that I've competed against, and like that feeling was just incredible. My heart was racing so quick. I like almost couldn't breathe for a second of just how exciting it was. And I have never got so many texts from parents and kids that I coach, just so excited to be able to watch their coach on TV, and players that they're aspiring to be in the position of one day. And that's something that I've never got to experience before. And it was just overall such an incredible feeling, not only for myself and my teammates and probably everybody else in the NWHL, but all those young girls that were able to watch people on the big screen playing for a cup for the first time on national television. So just all around a great day for women's hockey.
Yeah. And I mean, those kids you coach must have had quite a time watching you. Your semifinal game was kind of insane. Even though you guys didn't win the cup, you had a 44 save shutout in that semifinal game. And I remember
Yeah.
watching an interview with you after that, and you looked so surprised when they told you that was.
Yeah, I got a lot of feedback on that from my teammates, from people that I coach. My even childhood friends were like, "Oh, we saw this of you on Twitter." So I had a lot of notifications after that game, and yeah, just kind of just so excited to be able to play for the Isabel Cup, and then to hear that I had 44 shots was a little surprising to me, especially since we won 7-0. So it was a little surprising, but overall, just grateful that I got to be part of the weekend, even though it didn't end quite the way that Minnesota would have liked it to.
It was a wild weekend, and I'll admit, don't tell the person whose wedding this was, but I was at a wedding that weekend, and I kept like pulling out my phone and be like, "How's Lev doing? Okay." All right. Well, the season's over now. What is next for you? What are you doing now?
Normally, after every season ends, I take a little bit of a break from hockey. This year feels a little bit different. The whole goal of every season is to put yourself in a position to compete for the Isabel Cup and then ultimately have that opportunity to raise it, which we got to the final game, didn't quite get the win. So it sits just a little bit differently in the off season. I'm definitely motivated to get back on the ice right away and get back into the gym. But I know it's important to mentally and physically take a break from hockey so that you can start fresh. But I don't know, it might be hard to keep me off the ice for
Yeah, are
a
you
month.
kidding? Because you spend every moment of every day on the ice, even though you're not always playing. Do you want to talk a little bit about coaching and how you ended up in that career?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to have the path that I've had and to be in the position that I am today. I'm the goalie director for OS Hockey, which is an all female training program in Minnesota. The owner is actually Winnie Brown, who's on my team. And to see what she's been able to do in her hockey career and continuing now with her training and her company that she's built is just truly an inspiration to me. And she's around the rink all the time. She knows probably every single female hockey player in Minnesota, and she's just such an incredible person. So I'm very blessed to be in a company working underneath her. And for the rest of this year, I'm going to continue to coach. And as the summer comes around and restrictions are lifted a little bit with the pandemic, it's gonna be fun to get back to that atmosphere of being able to be around for the girls, being around the other players who are in the camp, because right now they're not able to be in the dressing room with them. It's a quick 5 minutes in, 5 minutes out once you're off the ice. So I'm really excited for those girls this summer. Hopefully to have that opportunity to build those friendships, not only on the ice but also off the ice as well, because that's one of the cool things about hockey is you can make so many incredible friends along the way, and I really want those girls to have that experience as well this summer.
Yeah. So I mean, you see, I couldn't tell you hundreds of kids, I feel like, from the way you talk about all the coaching you do. I feel like you're never not at some practice or some training. So you see tons of kids. You're looking at the future of hockey kind of every single day, these kids you work with. How do you see hockey, like the future of hockey, changing in those kids that you're coaching? Are things different from when you were coming up at all?
Absolutely. I think just what Winnie has built for female hockey players in Minnesota is incredible. When I was growing up, there was never an all female training program that I could be a part of. I always had to train with the boys, and I'm very grateful for that. I played boys hockey growing up, but now looking at women's hockey and girls hockey, there's not that many girls that are playing boys hockey. And I think that's just a testament to all the work that coaches and players have put in to increase the talent level. And I think as the sport continues to progress, we're going to see some extremely talented girls coming up. I think the skill level of girls hockey is much higher now than what it was when I was a kid. Just looking at some of these girls who are able to rip the puck at 9 or 10 years old is incredible. It's a little bit scary sometimes as a coach, especially since I'm a goalie coach. I'm kind of standing right beside the net, and there are some young girls that are able to rip the puck, and unfortunately,
Maybe the was there, but not the aim yet. That's scary.
yeah, exactly. So I've actually been hit by a couple pucks this year. My husband always is like, you come home with a new bruise every single day from coaching, and it's just the talent level is incredible, and it's so rewarding to see it with all the sacrifices that a lot of my teammates have to make growing up playing hockey, and now just seeing all the opportunities opening up for females. It's really cool. It's really special to be a part of it in a small way.
All right, well, that's awesome. We'll be back with more from Amanda Levier later in the show when we talk about Lev's seriously elite Instagram presence and play a game that will really make you think. Stick around. So much happens in the world of women's sports every week, and unlike men's sports, we don't have 27 TV networks dedicated to covering every little thing. We do our best here at She Plays Weekly to cover as much as we can, but there's just not time to talk about everything. That doesn't mean we can't try, though. Let's run through as many sports stories as I can fit into a minute in a segment we call Catch You Up. All right, 1 minute on the clock. Okay, where do I start? Beach volleyball. April Ross and Alex Kleinman mathematically qualified for the Olympics last week. All right, Olympic gold medalist Chloe Kim won her second halfpipe title in a week at the United States Grand Prix for snowboarding. Inbee Park won her 21st title in the LPGA's Kia Classic, which was the season opener for 2021. The NCAA announced flag football as an emerging sport, making it a varsity sport at the 15 two-year colleges across the country. Anna Sherbakova won her first title in the figure skating world championships, where the Russian team swept the podium for the first time ever. An anti-trans sports bill failed in South Dakota on Monday, which is a tiny piece of good news, but governor and known Midwestern ghoul Kristi Noem is still trying to ban trans folks from sports, and we'll talk about this more, I swear, but we gotta move. Okay, after a ridiculously suspenseful Twitter campaign, the NWSL announced Monday that Nationwide is, in fact, on our side. A bunch of WNBA new jerseys were leaked by Dick's Sporting Goods somehow because we can't have nice things. The U.S. women's national team released the roster for next month's international friendlies, but still no one knows who the hell Vlatko Andonovski is taking to the Olympics. That was Catch You Up. We will be right back with more from Amanda Levier. We're back with Amanda Levier. Lev, we know that you're a killer goalie, but a lot of people might not be aware that you also have one of the best Instagrams in sports, in my opinion. Can you tell me a little bit about that, how that got started?
So when I originally signed with the Buffalo Beauts back in 2016, there was a little bit of a delay between my visa and being able to cross the border. And I had just got my brand new Brian's pads, and I was not able to practice in them. So I put on all of my goalie gear, like most goalies can agree that they do this. Put on all my goalie gear just to feel it out. And my mom told me I needed to take the dog for a walk. So I didn't want to take all my gear off. So I just took him for a walk in my gear. And my mom somehow snapped a photo of it. I posted it on Instagram, and right away it got tons of positive feedback. I think I gained 50 followers or something from that one post, and at that time I was not really into social media or anything along those lines. And from there, my goalie partner Kelsey Newman at the time also kind of had that weird goalie energy to her as well. And from then on out, once I met her, we decided we were just going to do random stuff in our goalie gear. And since then, it's got a lot of positive feedback. And if you look at my Instagram, I don't think I've posted a photo of me without goalie gear on in probably 5 or 6 years. So
well, why would you? I mean, it's too fun. Yeah.
Exactly. Just got to keep it all goalie stuff, and I try to make puns out of anything that I can, just to make it.
Puns are truly impressive. That's my favorite part. I love a good pun.
So we've got a couple examples here just to show people what we're talking about, what we're working with. This first video, you're at a trampoline park, it looks like.
Yes.
No skates, I assume.
No, they probably wouldn't have let us in with any of our skates. That was a couple summers ago after a goalie camp. Me and a couple of the other girls just decided randomly that we wanted to go do something in our goalie gear, and a trampoline place was somehow the first option that we thought about. We called the place, they were all over it. They're like, yeah, sure, come down to the trampoline place. And it was a lot of fun until we tried to jump into the ball pit. And one of the goalies kind of got stuck in there, and it was a little scary for a second. If you can imagine it, it's hard enough wearing goalie gear and running around and jumping on a trampoline, but now put yourself in a foam pit and try to navigate that. But we got her out. It took a little bit of time. We got her out. Nobody was harmed in it. It was
so a close call. It's soft in there. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's very well protected.
Yeah, she was fine. She was fine.
All right, so this video, this is your training video, right? You guys are doing all kinds of training exercises in this. What was the hardest thing to do in this video in goalie gear?
Oh, probably going into the pool on what is that thing called? A paddleboard.
Okay.
That was, like, just the idea of, like, if I fall in the water here, my gear is just gonna soak up, and I'm probably just gonna sink to the bottom.
I can't imagine it's good for swimming.
No, probably not. I saw some videos online of goalies in their goalie gear swimming, and I was pretty impressed with them. But that probably just the mental side of not falling in on that thing was a little bit tough. I did get really frustrated when I tried to jump over those. What are those called? Hail bales? Is it hail bale?
Hay bale.
That was okay. So I went in with the wrong mindset with that. I thought that was going to be like the easiest, coolest looking shot ever. I was just going to run up and jump right on top of it, kind of simulating like jumping over the boards. And it was not what I expected at all. That was
a little taller.
A little taller. It's really hard to jump in goalie equipment. I suggest anyone who's looking to build big legs or strong legs to try to do it, because as you're jumping up, like, your gear is coming down on you. So it just adds a ton of extra weight. And I was getting so frustrated. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but I was getting pretty mad because I am competitive. But yeah, that one was pretty hard. I think they all were pretty hard. Doing anything in goalie gear is very difficult.
All right, well, since you're such a fan of doing things in goalie gear that you're not supposed to do in goalie gear, and since I'm curious, I'd like to get a better idea of just how high your confidence is about what you can do in goalie gear. All right, so we're going to play a little game right now that we call This or That. Here's how this game works. So I'm going to read you two activities, and all you have to do is decide which one you would rather have to do in full goalie gear. And obviously, we would love to know the reasoning behind that, because this is an educational game. It's a very serious subject. The kids you coach might watch this, and they need to know. All right, are you ready?
Yeah.
Feel good? All right. So, number one, would you rather go to a concert or go grocery shopping?
Oh, do grocery shopping for sure.
Yeah.
I think the concert would there's an element. Concerts are already really warm and hot.
You'd get hot, yeah.
And there's a lot of people around you, and normally people are, having fun and dancing, and it's very common to get run into. I just feel like having gear on would be extremely difficult to stay hydrated and not pass out. I could see myself passing out if I went to a concert. Now, if they let me go on the stage and like have a fan with me, then yeah, totally, I would do it. It'd be worth passing out if I could go on a stage with a famous singer. I don't know who's big nowadays. But yeah, if they want that, I would make it happen. Definitely.
All right. So number two, all right, number one, grocery shopping, got it. Number 2, would you rather bake a cake or eat Thanksgiving dinner?
Oh, okay. Bake a cake or eat dinner? That's so hard.
Thanksgiving dinner.
Thanksgiving dinner. That's really hard because I love food and both of those options sound incredible. Depending on what type of cake it is, I might have to bake a cake. But
Did
thanks.
you like manage measuring cups and stuff with that? Like,
Yeah,
that'd be okay.
we I don't know if we ever posted this, but my goalie partner and I actually baked a cake in our goalie gear. It didn't turn out very well. We had a lot of flour and egg and random parts of the recipe on our equipment for a long time afterwards. But
I bet your coaches love that.
yeah, probably pretty distracting for a shooter coming down to see like old egg.
Is that frosting?
Yeah, yeah.
Stop them.
And Thanksgiving dinner, that sounds, I don't know, both those are good options, but I would probably baking a cake, I guess.
You'd have to like get it through your cage though.
Oh yeah.
You'd have to cut it up real small.
Yeah. So yeah, I think baking a cake would be
All right. Number 3, we talked about water difficulty, so get ready. Would you rather kayak or water ski?
Ooh. I hear kayaking is really hard. Like I think it's pretty common that people flip over.
It's really small too. Like, would you fit?
I probably wouldn't fit. Water skiing, I've seen some people water ski before, so that would be interesting. I've never actually water skied without my gear on either, so I don't know how good I would be at that, but I would be terrified to get into a canoe even without my gear on. I feel like I would flip and end up at the bottom of the river, the lake, or ocean, whatever you canoe in.
I wonder if you could use your pads like as water skis and sort of like kneeboard your way along.
Oh.
Maybe that could be a new sport. We could do like a crossover kind of situation.
Yeah, I like that idea. I'll need to find a boat for this summer.
All right, number 4. Would you rather ride a horse or drive a Prius?
Okay. Both of those I feel like are impossible. I actually, my grandpa lives out in the country, and he had a neighbor who had a bunch of horses, and I tried to convince the neighbor to let me ride their horse, but apparently horses are very scared of colors. So me and all my gear, especially with the fish on them, they're pretty colorful. I feel like the horse would freak out and kick me and break some bone of mine. So I'm not sure I would even be able to get on the horse. And then on the other hand, drive a Prius. That just sounds like, I don't even think I'd be able to reach the
can you fit? It's pretty big.
So I don't think I could even fit. So both those options seem really dangerous, but I probably the horse.
If you get thrown off, you got a lot of padding.
Exactly.
That's one thing.
I don't land on my head. Yeah, I'll take the horse.
All right. Yeah. Much lower stakes. Number 5. Would you rather play double dutch or twister?
Is double dutch that?
The 2 jump ropes.
Ooh, that sounds like a challenge. Twister?
You said it's hard to jump.
It is hard to jump, but that sounds like that might potentially be fun.
Are we giving you ideas for future?
Yeah, I'm actually loving this. Yeah, because I don't always have ideas, and I haven't posted in a while, so this is very helpful. I think that you called it double dutch.
Yeah.
Flip, double dutch. I think I would try that.
Yeah, twister. I feel like is it possible? Like there's no room between your limbs with all that stuff on them.
I feel like that would be too easy.
Yeah, you can play by yourself, but with 2 people, I feel like you just fall over immediately.
I could probably knock the people over, so I would win. I would win, yeah.
And you're competitive, so that could be an advantage.
Yeah, watch out.
All right, final question for you. Something people say all the time about goalies when they do well, and about you on Friday, is that they were standing on their head. So I have to ask, have you ever actually tried to stand on your head in goalie gear?
I don't think that would work out really well for me, but I do flop around a lot. So
can you stand on your head without goalie gear? I guess is the first question.
Oh no, probably not. I can't even do a handstand or a walk on my hands or anything cool like that. No. I could try. I guess I could try it with my gear. I don't know. I feel like the weight of the pads would just like make me bend over and my head would go the other way.
Yeah, wouldn't be great. I mean, you might want to not come back though, because if you do, we might have to make you try it, because that could be at least entertaining, if not fun.
I'll have to train for that. I'll start training for that right now.
Yeah, well, the season's over. You have time. You need something to do.
Exactly. So
I'm here to help. You know, that's what this is for. All right, amazing. Well, that was This or That. Thank you for playing. That is all we have with Lev tonight. You can follow her Instagram. It's at Mandy_Levier. And keep an eye out for her on the Minnesota Whitecaps in the NWHL. Thank you so much for being here, Lev. All right, stick around. We've got one more segment for you before we go.
Women's sports history is being written every day, and this week we saw a lot of firsts. We'd like to make a big deal out of that right now in a segment we call History Makers. Athletes Unlimited crowned Jordan Larson as the first ever volleyball champion at the end of their inaugural season. Larson scored 4,569 overall points and was a captain for 4 out of 5 weeks of play. Not only is her championship win the first for the new league, this year's Athletes Unlimited volleyball season marks the first time we've had pro indoor volleyball in the U.S. since 2002. The league announced yesterday that Athletes Unlimited volleyball will return for its second season in 2022. In an NBA first, an all-female broadcast team consisting of Amy Audibert, Megan McPeak, Kia Nurse, Kayla Gray, and Kate Burness were courtside and in the studio for the Toronto Raptors game on March 24th, International Women's Day. John Wiggins, VP of Organizational Diversity and Inclusion for the Raptors, wanted to set the precedent that women belong in sports and make it clear that while this was the first, it will certainly not be the last. And so far so good, as 3 days later, the Sacramento Kings followed suit with a telecast they call Breaking Barriers. The first Women's Pro Hockey Championship aired on national TV on Saturday night with a nail-biter that concluded with the Boston Pride on top. The Pride became the first team to win the Isabel Cup twice in their 4-3 win over the Minnesota Whitecaps. Yes, the league exists. It's adding new sponsors all the time, and there's even rumors of expansion to Montreal next season. After the amazing reception of the first game on NBCSN, we're pretty sure the NWHL is just getting started. 32-year-old Catherine Nesbitt became the first woman to officiate in a CONCACAF Men's World Cup qualifier last Thursday night when she ran the sidelines. Following Nesbitt, Stephanie Frappart, a high-profile referee who officiated the 2019 Women's World Cup final between the U.S. and the Netherlands, went even further when she officiated a World Cup qualifier between Latvia and the Netherlands on Saturday. Both women were the first in a string of female officials who worked the Men's World Cup qualifiers last week, and I cannot tell you how good it felt just to see the men just doing what these women said, though I guess the yellow cards might have helped. Lisa Byington became the first woman to call play-by-play for several games in the men's NCAA tournament. This, however, is just her latest in a career of firsts, including becoming the first woman to call play-by-play for a Big Ten network football game in 2017, and being part of the first all-woman crew to call an MLS game in 2019. Alexandra Olniakova is auctioning off lifetime ownership of a section of her arm in the form of an NFT. The highest bidder can do as they please with the space, from leaving it blank to commissioning a tattoo. Anything is possible. NFTs are not new to sports, but no one has ever auctioned off a part of their body before. Maybe I'll auction off my big toe next week if I'm feeling wild. All right, that is our show, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back every Thursday night at 10. This has been She Plays Weekly. We'll see you next week.